First of all, I want to say greetings to everyone. Thank you for taking your time to be with us today. My name is Carla Brown. I am the Director of Partnerships and Operations at the National Peace Corps Association. So on behalf on all of my colleagues, I would like to thank you again for joining us today in this joint session with the Peace Corps. We're all obviously part of the Peace Corps family, so it's great when we have an opportunity like this to get together. I would also like to take just a moment to small shout out to the team. Dan Baker, who's the president and CEO, is on the line, as well as others. And it's always a pleasure to have our leadership to be here and among us as we're talking about such critical issues that are really linked, link the partnership between the Peace Corps and the relationship between the Peace Corps and National Peace Corps Association. As all of you know, we're here to talk about, as the title indicates, Bon Voyage, send-offs for RPCV groups. And this is an important topic and a critical topic because we all know that there were quite a few years where there were no volunteers in the field. And so this issue, this particular topic is really supporting new volunteers that are about to go off to really feel welcome into the family. So there are our guests from Peace Corps, our partners from Peace Corps, who are going to be leading the conversation are Andrew Wilson. He's the director of the Office of the Third Goal, Return Volunteers. We have Eileen, who is also on the phone. She is the recruitment advisor focusing on diversifying international engagement. And we also have Kate. Kate is the senior advisor with Peace Corps. She has worn several hats at the agency, been director, etc. But now she's really focusing again on really getting the message out and supporting new volunteers going into the field and helping us to do what's possible to make people feel welcomed when they return. So again, it is a big honor, I would say, from my perspective, to be on the phone with them and their colleagues. I will just take one moment to tell you why this is an important topic for us at National Peace Corps Association. Obviously, we're all passionate about Peace Corps. And one of the key things for us is to, figure out the best ways that we can to support the agency and to support potential volunteers. This is important to us because we feel that the send-off space is a great place where we can begin the connections right at the beginning with new volunteers, even before they leave, so that they know that they are part of a larger family when they return, when they're in the field, etc., that they have people that they can already reach out to. So this is a really important topic for us. The second is for NPCA, one of our priorities is diversity, equity, and inclusion, because the face of the United States is made up of lots of different kinds of people with different backgrounds, ethnicities, gender, etc. And so for us to be in a space where people begin to feel comfortable and feel that they have a place where they can reach out to people is critical. So this send-off allows people from the beginning to make connections before they even are on the plane. So, and third, continuation of service is a big priority. As we all know, that's what the third goal is about. And so we have been working and have been developing lots of partnerships with various organizations about that revolve or are really turning around this idea of continuating a service, volunteerism when we return to the States, how we continue to create community, national and international community. So for us, this conversation is so important because it's really the first step for those who are about to enter our family. They've started the application process, but it's always nice when you meet some of your big brothers and big sisters, as I will call us, as we are the return volunteer community for those who are about to enter. So without further ado, I am going to pass over to Kate so she could really orient us and get us started on this great topic.
Super. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank a lot of folks who are on this call. I was going to say old faces, but I don't mean old faces. I mean familiar faces on this call. And in many cases, I have spoken to you as part of a homework assignment, if you will, that I was doing, speaking to a number of groups about send-offs and what they have meant for their affiliate. I will change the name to protect the innocent here, or the guilty, but I put together some of the comments that you all have made as we have had these conversations. And you know, just as you might drop questions into the chat box that come up along the way. Also, if you hear some thoughts that lead you to think that there's a best practice that you might want to share or comment to, please drop that in the chat too, because this is going to be a conversation that starts today but will not end today. So we will look at two major things. One is what we have heard and what we believe will be the benefits of increasing the number of affiliate-run send-offs, and also describe how how Peace Corps has tried to look for a way to make this as, or I won't say painless, but I'll say as painless as possible for affiliate groups to do these events. So next slide, please. What I want to mention is that there are a variety, and I'm sure this is going to be a list that keeps changing. There are a variety of affiliate groups, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And each one of them is an incredible resource for volunteers who are beginning their journey with Peace Corps, but also for those volunteers that are coming back. And I see that there are different folks from each one of these groups represented on the call. When I say geographic, I'm speaking to something like, you know, RPCVs of Denver or of Washington, D.C. Country of service will be the Friends of South Africa or the Friends of Botswana. Issue-based are the many and growing number of affiliate groups that look at specific issues that are of great interest to currently serving volunteers and returned Peace Corps volunteers, such as the RPCVs for environmental action. We also have identity-based, and one of the stronger and more prominent would be the LGBTQI RPCV group. And then one group that some folks are not as familiar with, but within the federal government space, there are over 20 RPCV groups, you know, employee resource groups, where we have large groups at the USAID mission, I should say agency, or the Department of Interior. So we have over 20 groups within the federal government space. I'll come back to this, but one of the things that we have found very interesting in terms of, as you get to know, either as a member of an affiliate group or just someone who gets to know someone who's going into Peace Corps, the ability to cross-pollinate, to have intergroup collaboration, it's really very useful for that returning volunteer or that volunteer beginning their journey, because it might be someone who is living in Wisconsin and joins RPCVs of Wisconsin, but is really passionate about the environment. So it might be, well, in that case, we might have 2 for 1, right? But it might be that the RPCV group would direct that invitee or that RPCV to the RPCVs for environmental action. The other might be that you have a volunteer who is going off to serve in a particular country and would love to have an opportunity to speak to a volunteer or volunteers that are members of the LGBTQI affiliate. And so this cross-fertilization or conversation it just demonstrates to the volunteer who's going off to their country of service that there is a broad cross-section of RPCVs who are standing ready to make their experience a successful one. So the next one, please. When we look at the benefits for the invitee, Peace Corps volunteers, and Peace Corps, I just wanted to mention that one of the issues that we're we're grappling with is not only a reduction in the number of applications that we're getting, but also this period of time from when someone is invited to when they get on the plane to go to their country of service. So we're looking at retention of those folks that have been invited. And depending on when they get invited, it could be 3, it could be 6 months before they leave. And how do we keep them engaged with Peace Corps? How do we begin to involve them with Peace Corps in such a way that they start to build their loyalty and allegiance to the organization, and feel excited about going, and can feel comfortable about that time space that we have there. So it is an ability to gauge the interests of folks and get them involved in things that you are doing. So the send-offs help obviously with recruitment, because a number of you that I know have held these, and myself who have participated in a number of them. You hold a send-off event, and folks that are in the restaurant or in the park or wherever you might be having your event see the Peace Corps group, see signs of countries of service, and are drawn to that. So you're really assisting us with the recruitment activities. And then in terms of retention, you're able to, someone who is going in a couple of months, they might join you at a park cleanup. They might come to a happy hour that you have, or some other event that you have, so that they feel, again, that they're becoming part of the Peace Corps organization and family. Other things that happen while volunteers are serving, some of the affiliate groups really maintain relationships with those volunteers over the two years of their service. Some groups invite volunteers that they have met at these send-offs to call in, or I should say Zoom in, or in some virtual way, call into meetings. That allows, again, the volunteer to feel that they continue to be part of your organization, but it also allows your affiliate group to stay in touch with that volunteer and what's going on in the countries around the world through them. Also, there's some groups that after the send-off and that building of a relationship with the new invitee, then PCV, they also set up support if a volunteer is marketing a particular project that they're working on. They've raised funds, they've sent materials, and again, they've continued to support that volunteer during their 2-year volunteer service. And also, I think all of these groups that continue to recruit for us, help keep volunteers who are invited excited and engaged. You're helping us to keep our numbers high and meet the needs of the posts and the agencies that we work with around the country, because the demand continues to be high and our numbers are not keeping up with the demand at this moment. So the next is, what we have heard, and we hope will encourage other groups to do these and perhaps even do more of these send-offs, is what the benefit appears to be for the affiliates. Clearly, a growth and diversification. So as you're reaching out to those folks who have been invited, many times, just as Carla mentioned, you will have a very cross section of the community joining Peace Corps, going off to Peace Corps. And as they come back and want to re-engage with you all, that increases your numbers and hopefully will increase the diversification in terms of age or gender, professions, the countries of service that are represented in your affiliate group, and also the relevance of their experience. They're bringing back the experience of a Peace Corps volunteer of 2024, 25 to complement all of the other eras within your group that are represented. It's your, as I mentioned, it's your contact with the field. We have some groups, some affiliate groups that are invited by the post to participate, if you will, in close of service activities, or they encourage the affiliate group. These primarily, I'm talking now of the country of service affiliate groups, that they continue to kind of walk alongside, accompany the volunteers that are in they're in their country. Because in the case, obviously, of the country of service groups, they will have members from across the country, right? Versus the geographic ones and the other affiliate groups where it might be either across the country or down the street where they might be coming from. It might also be for an affiliate group that some of your members will get excited about taking on the organizing and hosting and follow-up of the send-off activity. It might be something, you know, in many cases, the affiliate groups were commenting on, they continue to look for ways to engage and motivate their own members, as well as bring in new members. Therefore, having this as an event, it might be something that a few of your members will get excited about and take on the lead for doing it. I mentioned the plugins during service, you know, ways to be involved with the volunteers as they serve, and new roles for some of your board members or your committees to take on. Yeah, I mean, our hope is that these send-offs serve as a really concrete way to energize, re-energize, and stay relevant for all of the affiliate groups. So next slide, please. So I'm gonna move on here, and I can come back if there's a desire to dig down a little bit more about specifics of what I've been talking about. But you know, again, the idea of organizing an event which will pull in from across the country, if you are a country of service or issue-based or a identity-based organization, or a local event if you are a country, you are a geographically based affiliate group. Our hope is that we can begin to share with you some examples of when these are the most successful. But one of the things that when I was speaking to different groups about affiliate send-offs that are already being organized and executed, many of them said, we've got folks that are interested. It's not really a money issue. What we need is, how do we find out who's going? How do we find out who's going to the country of, you know, that where we are a country of service affiliate? Or how do I find out who is going from 50 miles around where we're sitting? And so that's what the Office of Volunteer Recruitment and Selection, along with Third Goal, has been trying to figure out how we can get the invitations to your events out to the volunteers who are heading out on their Peace Corps journey. So I'll put a pin in it there, and I'll turn it over to Eileen Conoboy to kind of talk about what we have at the moment. We're going to have to rely on many of you to keep informing this and improving this, but I think it's a wonderful start for how we can work more closely with the affiliate groups to facilitate these great events. So I will turn over to Eileen.
Right. Hello, and I hope everyone can hear me. Sorry for any, oh, excellent. I see Kate's thumbs up. Sorry for anyone who was listening to my audio check earlier. It is great to be here today, and I'm very excited. I see a drum roll, please. I know that this is the question of the hour and probably of the decade. in terms of just how to make connections. We all agree that these are so symbiotic, so mutually beneficial, and lift all of our boats. And it's always seems more complicated than it should be, right? So my name is Eileen Conoboy. I'm an advisor in the Volunteer Recruitment and Selection Office at Peace Corps. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Mali back in the 90s. And I remember in those pre-internet days of just clamoring to meet anybody who had ever served. I wasn't someone who had a relative or even remember somebody coming to the college. I remember one guy I finally found, not through a group, but who knows, maybe a shakedown on the street. I was desperate and I found one person who had served, and I couldn't get enough of that person's probably microfiche at the time, but I just was really soaking it all up. And so when I came back from Mali, I joined RPCV of Washington, D.C. and took on a volunteer role there and helped with all kinds of things. And to me, that was just the catharsis I needed. But how cool to then be part of that, future Peace Corps volunteer network. But I have a lot of appreciation, as we all do, for the work that you all are doing. And I'm going to take you through some of these steps. And just to really nail home, I hope, the fact that this is so iterative, we need you all. You might hear something and say, well, that's goofy. What if you did this? And please know, give it to us. We want this to work for all involved. And we're just really trying to come up with something that better connects us. So next slide, Heather, please. All right, so first and foremost, we know you all are doing great events around the country. Some of you have relationships with your wonderful recruiters. We have just under 50 recruiters, Peace Corps recruiters around the country. And so there's inevitably places where we don't have recruiters, but we know that there are some strong relationships already in hand. And so that's terrific. However, just trying to come up with one entry point, one front door for RPCV groups to really be able to say, what did Kate say? Kate said to call somebody, or here's a phone number, and everyone's trying to put people in touch. We hope that this RPCV at peacecorps.gov inbox, an email address, really is useful in kind of steering your wonderful ideas and wonderful events our way, so that we can help be part of that trumpeting and amplification and collaboration on these send-off events. There will be time for Q&A just as I go through this. So please feel free to put stuff in the chat, and then we can also use the Q&A portion here. But the important thing is, again, RPCV at peacecorps.gov. This is going to be something that we're going to really use as kind of that navigation path to help get some stronger relationships and some great timelines in place. We do ask that you put send off invite in the subject line. It'll just help with that navigation routing component, because the routing piece is really that once we see that in the inbox, we're going to connect you with a recruiter and a public affairs specialist. So we've got the marketing, we've got the recruitment piece, and we'll do what's last on that slide, which is the recruiter and the public affairs specialist are then able to work with you on what are the details. When is this happening? Have you already picked a place? What do you need? Is the recruiter in the area able actually to attend in person? Ideally, that's what could happen, but not always the case. Kind of get a better sense of, the vision and the components of that. If we could move on to the next slide, please. We do ask that 4 weeks notice really is what is recommended to give the event maximum promotion. So that is there on the slide. Be creative. We know you all have this so down pat. We've heard some terrific stories from recruiters as well as RPCV groups that have done things, and we've learned about them after the fact. We know you all are doing some amazing stuff, and so anything we can do to put that on the front end and hopefully work with you, we're really hoping to see take it even to the next level. Color-coded name tags, something that we always hear from folks, and it's probably in the category of, well, of course we would do that, but it's really a great way to connect those future Peace Corps volunteers, return Peace Corps volunteers, people who are leads, people who have expressed interest, but not at all in the application process just yet. All the better to really get you all in the same room. And I say room liberally, that could be in person or virtually, which I think I just saw in the chat. And if we could go to the next slide. A couple tips on the send-offs. of course, RPCV groups do all kinds of activities. That's terrific in your purview. At the point where you're looking for kind of the federal agency amplification and collaboration piece where we would be working on this, really it's important that we aren't sending people to private residences. That's just, there's too many variables, too many unknowns. And so this, as we collaborate on this for the purpose of a send-off, that is a definite tip and recommendation if looking for promotion from Peace Corps. Donations and entry fees not allowed for a send-off event that we would be promoting and co-hosting with you all. And then just please be mindful when choosing the location of your event. I'm just sharing this in terms of, you know, finding welcoming places, open places. You know, restaurants can be fine, but, you know, Paul's Pub might not be that would not be a good idea for an event of this, for a send-off. You know, casinos and the like, just really looking for some nice, innocuous, welcoming places. Outdoor areas, and I think that may have already come up. Outdoor areas, picnics, community centers, anything like that. You all, you know, there's pretty wide berth, but I did just want to point that out, that, you know, bars, distilleries, those types of places that really have those would be places to steer clear of. And if we could go to the next slide. So in terms of how we promote, what are we going to do when you reach out to RPCV at peacecorps.gov? We will, like I said, we'll be putting you in touch with a recruiter and a public affairs specialist to see what we can make happen. But really the promotional pieces it's the promotional pieces and the who the heck is even going to be, you know, in the loop on this event, because we know you all have great promotional capabilities yourselves, but what you wouldn't have are the people in the queue, right? Whether they're returning volunteers or just perhaps popping their head up to say, maybe that's for me. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see an example of something that we can do is put the event on the Peace Corps website. This is great, and you could visit the Peace Corps website. We have an events page, very heavy on recruitment events, you know, info sessions, application workshops, but we do have some send-off events there as well currently. And this is where we could put the send-off event that the RPCV group would be developing and hosting to make sure that people who are browsing the website, which is, you know, pretty good numbers, can come across this as well. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see an example of an email invitation. The public affairs specialist, we have some great colleagues on the call today too, on the session, who can answer questions if needed, but really they're putting together marketing materials. This is just an email invitation, an example of something that we could push out through our marketing list of the invitees, of the returning volunteers, et cetera, to really make sure that your events have good eyes on those invites. And if we could go to the next slide, this is just, again, same vein, you get the idea, but a marketing flyer. Last slide was the invitation, the email. This is now just a physical flyer. We can provide flyers with all of the details. And I think it's really great too, with as many events as the recruiters host themselves and attend and career fairs. It's just great to be able to take those flyers with them for sure, to say, hey, by the way, there's this thing happening next week in Denver, you might want to attend, but also providing you with something that you can use your own channels to further give that push. Next slide. Okay, and before I turn it over to my dear colleague, Andrew, just something else that's terrific for these send-off events with recruiters and with kind of this triangulation of the RPCV group and the public affairs specialist and the recruiter is also just being able to really share updates. Right now on the Peace Corps website, you may have seen we have all of our volunteer openings, and I would be remiss if I didn't just make that plug for right now. We have a July 1st application deadline with many, many opportunities. So everything from teaching English in Ecuador, youth development in Armenia, health in the Gambia, but July 1st is the next big deadline. And so just the more that we're working with you all and the more opportunities we have to either share with you all and or pop up at an event and say, hey, I am the recruiter. I'd love to just share 2 or 3 things about some things that, you know, kind of agency updates that would be of interest to your group. So I'm going to turn this over to Andrew, Director of Third Goal. And then, like I said, I hope that the chat is flowing and we'll have some time for questions.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. Again, Andrew Wilson, the Director of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services at Peace Corps headquarters, and I'm also a return volunteer from Senegal. It's wonderful to be with everybody today. I have to start by sharing my appreciation for NPCA for having us and for everybody joining, for all you do collectively to support Third Goal, mission of Peace Corps, supporting and lifting up the RPCV community. I have the opportunity in my role to speak to RPCV group members all the time. And the work that you do and the impact you have is really, truly inspiring. I'm going to talk a little bit about what additional promotion my office is providing to help support these events, and a little about how we're trying to raise awareness overall of affiliate groups with currently serving volunteers. So as you see on this slide right here, the first place where we do this is going to be via the LinkedIn channel that my office manages, and I'm going to drop that in the chat. As an aside, I'd encourage anyone here to follow this page. This is really becoming the hub where we put information that's somewhat time sensitive out to the RPCV community. So great if you could follow that page and get word out about that. So for LinkedIn promotion of the send-off events, again, there's not an additional step necessary to get these promoted. We're going to leverage the process outlined earlier and pull information, as you see sort of on the screen there, from the postings on the Peace Corps website. But at the same time, would certainly appreciate folks liking and sharing these events on LinkedIn to help further raise awareness. Next slide. The other mechanism that Third Goal has to share information about these events is through emails to actively serving volunteers. This is actually an example of a recent email, and you're not going to be able to read the fine print really down the bottom where that arrow is. But in this email, we include information about finding the affiliate group that is the best fit for that individual. So it could be a geographic, as Kate mentioned, country of service, identity, cause-based workplace. And we can certainly add more information in these emails about where volunteers can access more information about send-off, or maybe more relevant to them, welcome home events on the Peace Corps website. Again, nothing needed here. This is just going to be something, if you send the email to rpcv@peacecorps.gov, that will kick off that process. I'll also make my second and last plug for a lot of the events that are, again, in very small print on there. There's lots of professional development and career events, including an in-person event at Peace Corps headquarters coming up on June 20th. Next slide. So this brings me to my last slide, which builds on what I just showed you in the last email, which was an email to currently serving volunteers, and really how what I would say is our new approach in my office to engaging active volunteers is, and back to the sort of the subhead at the beginning of this presentation, is really good for everyone. Before I get into that, though, I want to give a little bit of context to where we are now with returning volunteers or RPCVs that are going to start coming back to the US. As Carla mentioned, it seems a little bit hard to believe how time flies, but the first volunteers are returning to service in following the evacuation in 2020, started going back in March of 2022. So some of those first volunteers, and again, this was the first countries we went back to were Dominican Republic, and I saw Janice in here, and Zambia. And those folks have now completed their 2 years of service, and they are starting the COS. And there was a couple, those two countries actually just this month in May and not too long ago completed their COS. And I know everyone is very excited about the restart of the RPCV pipeline. A lot of these folks will come back and they might be Peace Corps headquarters staff, or going to be recruiters or response volunteers. Certainly they're going to be doing third goal activities, but absolutely, and I think Kate talked about this, absolutely can help bring some additional energy and enthusiasm into the affiliate groups. I will add, though, that it's important to note the stream of returning RPCVs is not really a rushing river at this point. It's a little bit of a trickle. Peace Corps is still well at less than half of our pre-pandemic strength with respect to the number of volunteers in the field. And that means that the flow of RPCVs is still reduced compared to historical numbers. And in fact, if you look on this, and I actually just looked at this data recently, if you look at all the states where volunteers are coming back between now and the end of September, there are actually less than 5 COSing volunteers for the majority of states. So for example, if a volunteer has our home record as Connecticut, between now and September, there's only going to be 5 or less volunteers for the majority of states. Some have more, California, and a few others have 10 or 20, but many states are in the single digits. That said, the trickle will grow, and as we began to reimagine what reentry might look like in a post-pandemic world, we wanted to prioritize a few things. First, volunteers are more career-focused than ever. We're hearing this from country directors, we're hearing this from recruits, and we really need to provide clear evidence and support about how Peace Corps is really an unparalleled launch pad for a career. And what this means is we have to start communications early and often about post-service career pathways. The second piece is there is a really important equity component to career support. Support for Peace Corps volunteers and access to information about post-service opportunities should not be dependent on where a volunteer serves, meaning some posts might have folks that are really comfortable in sharing information about careers and graduate school. Other ones might not. We want to make sure that really every volunteer gets the information that they deserve. And really our goal as an office is to get information to every single volunteer in an equitable way. The third piece I wanted to highlight is there are more opportunities for virtual engagement while volunteers are post than ever before. We learned a lot during the pandemic and through our remote work, and there is an ever-increasing access to technology in the countries and communities where volunteers serve, and we should be taking advantage of this wherever possible. What this means is we now have more frequent and more engaging opportunities to interact with volunteers, and that virtual engagement is a viable option, and I'll mention more about that in a second. And then one of the most powerful benefits of Peace Corps service is becoming part of an active network. And we need to create pathways for volunteers to find this network. And what this means here, we need to find ways to highlight how to become part of the many RPCV networks and groups that are out there. So a couple samples of what this looks like in practice. I outline what our goals are. So first of all, we have increasing virtual participation by my office in mid-service and close of service conferences. That's either means somebody from my office participating virtually in, say, a close of service conference, or providing materials that posts can use themselves. Second, and you saw one of the emails a minute ago, but really we start an email campaign to volunteers at the midpoint of their service, and each month through the remainder of their service, and then once they COS for another 12 months, we have a monthly topic that we talk about. Career services, and lots of other things. It could be covered our fellows in graduate school, federal employment and non-competitive eligibility, ways to continue to serve and engage with their local communities, and certainly networking opportunities at NPCA and the affiliate groups. That's absolutely a part of those emails. Next one is participation in virtual events. That could be virtual career fairs, that could be virtual professional events. And at this point, we actually invite all volunteers with 6 months or less in their service to attend these events. And it's been really exciting to see this new model sort of take root. In the virtual career fair that we had this past January, we actually had over 175 active volunteers in the field participate in the virtual career fair, again, back in January. And all of our professional developments we've done recently and career events, they've all had active volunteers participate. And then lastly on here, one of the things we're going to institute a little bit further out is going to be a post-COS virtual reconnect. We're planning for this now. I think the first one's likely going to be in September. And really it's to invite anybody who had COS recently to talk about the topics that might be of most interest to them, answer questions they might have, things that they were not maybe fully focused on when they were getting out of country, and now they've had time to think about it and need some additional support. And the main thing of all these things I've highlighted, really, and the takeaway that I wanted to share is that all of these engagements are an opportunity for us to highlight NPCA and the affiliate groups. And really all of our communications around these events include something about how to connect with a network of RPCVs through NPCA and its affiliate groups. And typically what that means is it's going to be a little bit of text, some places longer than others, but really we're going to always point back to that directory on because we never know what a given individual might be interested in, where they're coming from, where they might be going to, what identities might be relevant to them, what causes. So we're always pointing back to the directory. So it's wonderful to have that resource that we can keep pointing back to. And we are really trying to hammer home that becoming part of a vibrant and robust RPCV network and a member of one or more of the affiliate groups is, again, good for everyone. And we're trying to make that happen through consistent, frequent, engaging communications that highlight the value of the groups and how individuals can get connected and engage with them. And so I am done, and I will turn it, I think, now over to Carla, maybe.
First of all, thank you for what I consider to have been a very, very rich conversation, lots of great information. It's it's wonderful to hear how much is being done really to not only recruit, but really bring people and let people know that they are part of a large family of people. So really just want to thank you for a wonderful presentation. I'm going to open it up since we have a few minutes before closing to see if there are any questions that if anybody, I have not seen anything really in the chat that has not been answered, except for maybe, can there be virtual send-offs? And I think I heard yes to that. But other than that, I don't know if I saw any other questions in the chat. So I want to make sure I give people a chance to perhaps come off mic and ask a question or type something in, and I'll be happy to let individuals know.
Carla, I'll just to share, there were two, I think, well, I know that I think Caroline's on here. I mean, there was Hawaii, but also South Africa. Both have had some very successful virtual, and in a way, it allows for, in some cases, a bigger turnout, just because, you know, folks, it might be, let's say, RPCVs of Montana, but there's a lot of distance there. So, you know, trying to figure out where your members are, both geographically, but in terms of job commitments and all of that. So in some cases, there have been a number of affiliate groups that have done send-offs, both hybrid, or I should say not both, hybrid, in person, and all virtual. And all of them have been very, very successful.
Wonderful.
Anyway,
Wonderful.
country affiliate groups can communicate what's going on.
Anyway, country affiliate groups can communicate.
So yeah, so I mean, again, for example, when the, let's say, the Friends of the Dominican Republic, when they host an event, what will happen is that it'll go through the same process insofar as it'll come through that RPCVs at peacecorps.gov, and then the invitation will go out to all volunteers that are going over the next certain period of time to the Dominican Republic. So they will be invited just as volunteers would be if they were going to a geographically bound event.
Mm-hmm. So I will say, Kate, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but there is really a question about contacting the volunteers and how will people know, you know, before volunteers, outgoing volunteers, how can we get their contact information so that, you know, if a send-off event is not planned, same returning, can we email our newsletters to current PCVs and country? So everything around kind of communicating and touching this cohort. So perhaps you can give a little bit of a summary on that overview.
I might let Andrew answer part of that, but I will say that the emails and communications that the Office of Third Goal will be sending out does direct people back to the lists where events take place. So I think even though, because one of the things will be, let's say you want somebody, we're finding a lot of folks who they left from city X and they want to go back to city Y. And that's why we want to be able to provide them with sort of ongoing, all events that are going on that are facilitated by affiliate groups so that they can pick and choose what makes sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, Lisette has her hand up.
Lisette, do you want to jump in first? Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that the public affairs team, what we will do is if there's a recruiter that you're collaborating with, and we'll try to, you know, once you let the Office of Third Goal know that you're doing an event, and they'll connect you with a public affairs specialist or a recruiter. We work with that recruiter and we will work with you as well. And what we do is why it's important to include the recruiter is because we will look up their leads list and their contacts list. And so we make sure that we send it to them. And then we also we create our own marketing list for invitees and applicants within that area. And so we will also send the invitation to them. Unfortunately, we are unable to share their information with you, with any of you because of, personal information, PII, we need to respect that unless they let us know, hey, I want to get in touch with this RPCV group. That's the only way that we would be able to share their information with you.
And if I can just jump in here, the workaround that NPCA is excited about here is if you're creating your registration page with your group or within your database, especially if you're in our new database. Obviously, when people register, you can require them to put in their email address, and we can then tag them, or you can set up a way to tag them if you're in our database as part of your group. So you can continue talking to them throughout their service and after.
And again, just to piggyback on all that, we are consistently pushing out to volunteers proactively through many different ways. And I think one of the parts that I want to reemphasize there that is really important is it's not just one communication. It's again and again and again and again, and really making sure that people understand the value. So it's not just having the contact information, but making sure that they understand the importance and the value of connecting to the affiliate groups. And if we can reiterate that message many times, I think it's pretty good evidence that the more times that people hear stuff, the more they're going to remember it. And if we can start that process, if it can start at before they even go out, that's great. But if not, we can catch them at mid-service, at least from a third goal standpoint, when we start having communications with folks.
And maybe just to I think it's important to acknowledge that everyone in this conversation recognizes the challenges associated with rules and regulations that limit personal information that can be distributed. And so there is a strong commitment on NPCA side with the team on the phone from Peace Corps, Kate, Andrew, et cetera, to look at what kinds of things we can do creatively to make sure that this community stays connected, that, we can continue to, there's so many different cohorts and generations, and so that we can have access to all of those groups, because it makes a stronger, it makes for our group stronger, it makes our community stronger, and our ability to impact and to advocate on behalf of the values that many of us hold is really, it's a collective value, right? So being able to have those connections is so critical. So we are in ongoing conversations, meaning NPCA is an ongoing conversation with Andrew and team, Kate and team, to see what kinds of things we could put in place that, respect the regulations that are currently existing, but also recognize the critical nature of having access to individuals that are joining. And also giving a nod to our role for them to complete the process and actually go, because nobody is a better advocate than an RPCV. So these are the things that we are continuously discussing. One of the topics that did come up was that when you do, for example, have a send-off event, to make sure you have a sign-up list there can be something on it that, says, I agree that to give my that you can give my information out to the National Peace Corps Association, or something like that, that allows information flow to occur between NPCA and the larger community. So there's a lot of creativity, I think, right now, that the energy is really good on this topic.
Heather, can you go back to the slide, which I'm sorry, you just, sorry. I was going, or we can just put it in the chat. The primary,
which one?
Yeah, the slide which says, which gives the RPCV at peacecorps.gov slide.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if in verse, if you want to answer the question from Janice about, how would we, how would someone know if when a group's going to the DR or a specific country?
Can I just go ahead and answer that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is, again, follow this process, reach out to RPCV at peacecorps.gov. Just let us know once we have your contact information, once we know who you are, and you can regularly just kind of tap into us maybe quarterly and just ask, I'd like to find out how many are going to this particular country and what are the departure dates. Again, we can't give you the information, but we can give you a count and we can let you know those dates that they'll be departing. So that could give you an idea and just, building relations with us.
I think Judy asks a really good question in terms of setting up this massive send-off and nobody's leaving from your area. I mean, it's a very good question. I think, and Diana, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I guess the other thing would be, we're planning, let's say we're planning our summer picnic, and we'd like to turn it into a send-off. Can you tell us if there's anybody leaving from, let's say, 50-mile radius around, around Denver?
And that's exactly what we just did. I can't remember which state it was for or which area it was for, but again, someone just reached out. It's like, hey, we'd just like to know, is there interest in this? Would there be a good number for this? And we were able to identify at least 12 invitees in that area. So they found it was worthwhile to hold a send-off event. So again, just reach out to us.
Caroline also has a question from Hawaii.
So I see the question, this is something that we're actually, currently working on as an agency, which is, if someone is separated from service, and usually that would be medically related, how could a group find that out? There really is I don't think there's going to be a consistent way for the agency. We can look into that, but what we are doing is we're including many of the materials and information that we provide to volunteers who are finishing their service on a regular time frame. We're providing some of that or much of that in the materials that we provide to volunteers that find themselves medically separated, who oftentimes are in much more of a turmoil than those who are finishing during their 2 years of service. And in that, we have materials about the reminding folks of the affiliate group. So that wouldn't help you actually, Caroline, in this particular scenario that you're pointing out, but you might have found out much sooner that the person had returned if they are reminded that touching base with the affiliate group makes sense once they get home. Yeah.
Okay, so we have 6 minutes to go, and I do want to make a couple of closing remarks. First off, if there are any other really great questions, please let us know. We will make sure that we work with the team to get you the best possible answers we can. I also want to bring up that the country directors will be alerted about the affiliate groups, and they will be also a tool that will be used to encourage volunteers in the field to stay in contact with, whether it's geographic or around an issue, etc. So they are being actively brought into this process, and I think that's an important element. Kate brought up the fact that volunteers may move from one city. They may have been, from a city of origin, but they actually choose to live in another. That is one of the reasons why we really are advocating that when working with the individual groups, there is promotion of the National Peace Corps Association as well, because that's a tool that can allow them access to groups regardless of where they may be or where they may have started out. Lastly, NPCA will be posting the presentation on its website, and we have the list of all of the group leaders. We will also send out a link to the posting as well as the presentation, so that you will have access to that as well, to be able to share. Well, I shouldn't have said lastly. I think the last point to say is this is the first of a series of webinars that we are going to be hosting jointly with Peace Corps. variety of topics, and we are going to be looking to make sure that we are responding as best we can to issues around time, time zones, and issues about topics of interest, because we want to be responsive, and part of our role again is to demonstrate who we are as a community, and that means addressing issues that are important to everyone. We are stronger together. So I think that's where I'm going to really just end, and really to thank the team that came together to make this happen. Everyone from Peace Corps, the team at NPCA. It has been really a joint effort to want to really relaunch these kinds of dialogues, and the space where as a community we could come together and really talk about some challenging and complex topics, but if we solve it together, we're just that much more powerful. I don't know, Dan, if you have any last words. If not, or Kate or Andrew, Heather, any of you have any last words?
I'll just reiterate what I put in the chat. First of all, thank you, Carla and Peace Corps team. But I hope this can be just the beginning of the conversation, especially about sharing best practices. And I suggested and put the link for the affiliate group Facebook page where we can continue this rich dialogue.
And Carla, I would also mention that the next three presentations are, we landed on them because of a request from affiliate groups, and it will be highlighting the 3 regions. So folks have said, we'd really like to know what's going on in the countries where we served and where we are inviting people to go and serve. And so NPCA will be sharing details about that, but it was a direct response from a number of affiliate groups saying they wanted to be brought up to date in terms of what's going on in the countries where they served and where others are going to serve.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Okay, well then on behalf of Peace Corps and behalf of the NPCA, again, we thank everyone for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you and your teammates on the next webinar, for the next webinar.